Hello everyone, let's do long division today. We have this polynomial. It's a third degree polynomial divided by a first degree binomial. So let's do that. And so the way that we set up is that we are going to set up the division house right here. Okay, so let's just draw the division house first. Okay, and then we have a line right here. I actually don't know how long that I should set it. I think that's enough, right? So let's just try that. Okay, so we are going to get the 6x cubed minus x squared and then minus 11x and then plus 5. Okay, so that's enough space that I use. Okay, when you put this down, it's a good idea to leave some space for the terms, not too much space, but should have enough space for each of them. So it's not a good idea if you do something like this. So 6x cubed minus x squared minus 11x plus 5. And I actually have seen some students who are learning this doing this. It actually makes it really hard to do the long division because there is not enough space and then the terms are stacked together when you're writing them down. So that's not a good idea. Okay, so let's erase this. Okay, now that's called the dividend here that comes on the left side of the division symbol. And so that goes inside the house. And the expression that comes on the right side of the division symbol, that's called the divisor. And so that goes outside the house and we'll put it right here. So we have the 2x minus 1. Okay, so now we're ready to do the long division. But before we actually start, I actually just want to point out how we actually put down the answer. And then you may say, should I put the answer right here or should I put the answer right here? And people are using different notations. Different textbooks are also using different notations or different ways of writing down the answer and then different ways of doing the long division. So what I want to tell you, just to make it easy for you to remember all the steps and also to spot any errors in case there is any, it's to just count how many turns that you have here. And so if you count how many turns that you have for the divisor, then you will have a good idea on where you should be starting putting the first turn for your answer. And so if you count, then there are two turns, right? As you can see here, the 2x is the first turn, the minus 1 is the second turn. So we have two turns right here. And then we just count from the leading turn for the dividend inside the house. So we get first turn, second turn. So we are going to start our first answer on top of this negative x squared. So that's where we are starting. And I would suggest you, even though this is not part of the solution, it would be a good idea to actually draw a box above this negative x squared. So we can try that and see what's going on. I don't know whether this color will work. Actually, it looks quite like the one that I'm using right now. So let me try a different color for that. Okay, so it's pretty similar. It doesn't matter actually. Okay, maybe this one. Okay, so okay, I think this one looks good. So that's our first turn. See that when I'm drawing the box, I'm actually covering this sign right here. So I'm including the sign, not just the x squared, but also the sign in front of it. Okay, so that's our first box. And so from there, above each turn, you are going to draw another box. So maybe we get to fill in all these boxes. Sometimes there is no answer for one of the boxes. Actually, to make it look nicer, I'm just going to draw a box right here. Okay, so I think that looks better. And then another one. Okay, and then another one. Okay, so that should be good enough. So if all the boxes are to be filled in, then you are going to get what, 3 turns for your quotient. This is called a quotient here. That answer that you're getting is called a quotient, but I usually would just say that's the answer. But of course, the final answer should be including the remainder and also the divisor in there. But we'll worry about that later right now. Okay, let me see what's going on. We figure out how many turns that we have for our quotient. And so all we need to do right now is to start doing the problem. So we need to figure out what times the 2x and the doesn't matter with the minus 1. Actually, just whatever times the 2x will give us 6x cubed. So I want exactly 6x cubed right here. And so I just need to figure out that answer right here. That will, when we multiply that answer by the 2x, we get 6x cubed. So it's actually quite simple here. You just need to think about something times 2 gives you the 6, that something should be 3. Or you can simply just use 6 divided by 2 will give you the 3. But sometimes I don't want to do division. Usually, if the numbers are not too big, then it will be a good idea to just simply think about 2. I mean, something times 2 gives you the 6. And so that something is 3. So I can put the 3 right here. So that's our coefficient. We also need to put down the variable. How do we put down the variable here? Something times actually is x to some power. We actually don't know what that power yet, but x to some power times x to the first power. When we don't put it, we assume that exponent is 1. So x to some power times x to the first power will give us x cubed. So that should be x squared. So why do we get x squared? It's really because we have the second power, and then there was the first power. Let me put it right here. That's the first power, so 2 plus 1 will give you the 3 according to the rules of exponents, right? So x squared times x to the first is x cubed. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, we can now start, once we finish putting down the answer, we can multiply this 3x squared with a 2x and then put it right here, and then multiply this 3x squared with a minus 1 and then put it here. That's why we counted how many turns we have for the divisor, because once we have 2 turns, when you figure out a turn here, you multiply that with those 2 turns, then you are going to get 2 turns right here. So that's how that works. Okay, so 3 times 2 gives you the 6, and then x squared times x will give you the x cubed. And we actually are always going to get the same thing right here because we chose our answer so that the 2 first terms are the same. Okay, so that's 6x cubed. But don't stop here. Sometimes people will just forget when they're doing this. They will just start doing the subtraction. Don't even draw the line yet, because we still need to multiply this 3x squared with a minus 1. And so this step is really important to remember. If you forget this step, there is no way that you can continue finishing the problem. Okay, so now take this 3x squared times negative 1. We are going to get negative 3x squared. Okay, so that's how that works. And so now we can start drawing the line, right? So we can draw the line right there. Okay, so the line's a little bit, let me just draw it closer. Okay, now I think that looks better. And then, as you know, because we're doing long division here, so we should be subtracting the terms, right? So we're going to put a minus sign right here just to indicate that we are doing the subtraction. The parentheses is really just to separate the terms and the minus sign. Sometimes when there is not enough space, it's being put too close, and then we'll get confused. Okay, so when we're doing the subtraction, as you can see here, those two, if you're adding them, you are going to get 12. But because we're subtracting them, so they do not, they shouldn't be in opposite signs. They should be in the same sign. They should be exactly the same. That means the numbers are the same, the signs are the same, so that when you subtract them, they will get completely canceled. So if we are canceling them, we are going to cancel them here. You can put a 0x cubed right here, but it's unnecessary, so we are not going to put it. So I'm just going to leave it blank just to indicate that there is no more stuff left once you finish subtracting them. And then now, what is the next step? The next step is to calculate those 2 terms when you subtract them. This is negative x squared minus negative 3x squared. And so there was a confusion right here because there was a sign, there was another minus sign, there was a lot going on right here when you're doing the subtraction, so it's quite confusing. Here's one nice trick to make the calculation more easily, because many of us are really visual when we're doing the calculation. So in order for us to do it correctly, we can do something on the side, like right here, just to do some scratch work like this. We'll show you how that works. Okay, so what we are doing is that first, we are going to copy down this number, the number in front of the x squared. We don't even need to bother with the x squared, we just need the coefficient. What is that coefficient? It's negative 1, so let's put it here. Okay, so that's negative 1. What about this number? This number is negative 3. Okay, so we put down negative 3. Now, leave some space in between because we are going to fill in an operation there. That's important. The order of putting this down is important. You need to put down the top number first. Put down the bottom number. Don't fill in the sign yet. You should really just put in the bottom number first. Just copy, right? Just copy that number, Okay, so what about the sign in the middle? You just put down that minus sign in between. Okay, so that looks a little bit bad. So now put down the minus sign. So as you can see here, when you put down that minus sign, it becomes all clear what that calculation would be. In this case, what is that? That's -1 minus -3. It will be what? It's actually -1 plus 3. As you can see here, minus minus will turn into a plus. And then what do we get here? 3 minus 1 is actually just 2. So we get the 2 right here. And then, so what do we get? We actually have our answer right there. So it's actually just what, 2x squared. Okay, so that's how to deal with this calculation more easily. There is no more confusion. Sometimes you start thinking about whether that's -4 because you're adding them, or sometimes whether you think that's +4 or +3 or -3 or +2, -2, all kinds of different numbers, right? But actually, it should just be 2, +2. Okay. Now, once you get this turned down, then you are going to bring down another turn to continue with your calculation. Repeat the same process as the first step. Don't try to copy everything down. Just bring down one turn at a time. So we are going to copy down that -1, -11, not -1, -11x. And then you may say, what about the +5? Don't worry about it yet, because as you can see here, you have 2 turns in the divisor, right? So you should only have 2 turns in the in here so that you can continue the calculation. You don't need 3 turns to continue your calculation. So just 2 turns. Okay, so now what do? We are going to now choose something right here so that when we multiply with this leading term, the 2x right here, that will give you the exact same thing as a 2x squared. So that should be easy here. So something times 2 gives you the 2. We'll deal with the numbers first. So that something should be 1. And what is that? +1. +1. So +1 times +2 will give you +2. And then you also need to worry about the variable, right? So something times x gives you x squared. So that something should be x. So just 1x for the second box, and then you get that. Okay, so 1x times 2x will give you 2x squared. So that's what we have right here. And then you may say, what about next? Again, don't forget that you also need to do the second turn. So 1x times -1 will give you -1x. Okay, so that's finished. Now you can draw the line. Just always remember that you need to do both turns right here before you draw that horizontal line for the subtraction. Okay, and then we can also put down the minus sign right here. And then as you can see here, the 2x squared, we can cancel them. So let's cancel them. And then again, you're going to get 0. They will always get canceled because we chose our answer so that they will look exactly the same. Then we can cancel them. Now we are going to do this calculation here. This looks confusing again because there are different minus signs right there. So we are going to use the same strategy right here on the side. Do some scratch work on the side, put it horizontally so that you can see it more easily, what that answer should be, or what the operation should be. Okay, so let's do that. So that calculation is the, let me see. So we have the -11. So we copy down the top number. And then we also copy down the bottom number. So we are going to get -1 right here. And then now what? We are going to put a minus sign in between, right? Because we're subtracting. So that's from here. And then what do we get here? We can get -11 plus, right? Because of the minus will change into a +1. So we are going to get -10. Okay, so see what's going on here? We are getting -10 for this number right here. So that's our leading term for the next step. And then you may say, what about next? Next, we are going to repeat the process as step 2. We are going to bring down the 5 this time. So let me move down. I need more space. Okay, so bring down the positive 5. And then all we need to do right now is to fill in this last box. Okay, so let's think about this. Something times 2 will give us the negative 10. What is that something? That should be 5. But 5 times 2 is positive 10. We want negative 10, so we need negative 5. So we need negative 5. And then there was no more variable here because there is no variable times the x will give you just the x, so no variable here. So x to the 0 power, you can think of it that way. Okay, so negative 5 times 2x will give us the negative 10x. Okay, so let's continue. So we are going to get negative 10x. And then negative 5 times negative 1 will give you positive 5. And then now once you finish that, you can start drawing the line for the subtraction. And so you can see that those two terms will always get canceled because we chose our answers to be like that. And it turns out that those two numbers are also going to get canceled, so we don't really need to do the stretch walk on the side because they're exactly the same. Both are 5s, both are positive, so you can cancel them. So you cancel them, then you are going to get 0 as the remainder because there is nothing left. And so we have our answer, which is 3x squared plus 1x minus 5. And we can actually write down the answer. Just go back up to the problem. We can write down the answer right here. So our answer would be, we don't need the boxes, right? As you know, so we can just write down a polynomial. So the answer would be 3x squared plus, we don't even need the 1 in front of the x, so we can just put plus x and then minus 5. Then we have our final answer. And then you may ask me, what happens if there is a remainder that's not 0? And if the remainder is not 0, then we need to do more work. We need to write more in our answer. I will show you an example with that next time. Thank you for watching. And if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel and give me some more support. Thank you. Thank you.